What's up, YouTube? I'm Trent Wel-Don, and welcome back to my channel, Wel-Don Aquatics. So today, I want to get started kind of on what we're going to call a series. I gotta figure out how I'm going to piece this together, but I figured if I'm going to teach you or show you what I do in my hobby, I need to tell you how I got started. I need to take you back almost 3 years ago to when I got my, we'll say, real first fish tank and start our journey there. I don't expect you to listen to a word I have to say unless I can prove to you that I was once a new hobbyist. I once had the tank that I kind of cringe at now, but I also look back and just realize how proud I was of that tank. That's what I want to focus on. I want to teach people today to be proud of what they create. We are creating different environments and different setups and aquascapes, and each person brings a new personality to it, a new spin to it, a new idea, and that's what we're going to focus on today. So I want to take you back. It was Christmas of 2015. I recently, through some life changes, had to give up my snake. I used to be a reptile keeper. I love snakes. Met my wife. Well, wife didn't want snakes in the house, so we had to make some changes, and that's okay. You do what you got to do. Then she noticed that I started taking a liking to fish tanks. In essence, it was another glass box that held a different type of animal, but in her mind, it wouldn't crawl out of the cage and eat her in the middle of the night. So she surprised me, Christmas of 2015, with a brand new fish tank. And I was so happy. I really wish that you could all see how happy I was that, one, I got a new fish tank. I get to start a new hobby. Two, my wife noticed that I wanted to keep fish. How cool is that? She got me a 29-gallon starter kit. So what this came with was a 29-gallon aquarium. Came with a hang-on-the-back filter, a heater, some gravel, the hood, the LED lights in it, so everything that was very basic to start a tank. I was so proud of this tank because it was my tank, something that I got to create, and nobody could take that away from me. So here's the picture of my tank, and we'll talk more about that here.
This is the 29-gallon that my wife got me for Christmas. As you can see, it's a basic setup, but this was my tank, and I was extremely proud of it. So back then, I didn't know that there was such a thing as live plants that could be put into an aquarium. So I went with what I knew the big box stores had. That was the brightly colored artificial plants, and I thought they looked great. I also added my own twist. I added the scuba diving Santa, as this was a Christmas present. I wanted to remember that. I added the cop car and artificial castle for other decorations. And as we get farther into my channel, you'll see the progression that this particular tank has gone through. The big mistake I made with this tank was I added water and immediately added fish. I lost all of those fish but one, which I still actually have today. As we get farther into the channel, we'll talk more about that, of how to properly add fish to a tank. But this gives you a glimpse into the tank that got me passionate about fish keeping.
This is my first fish tank. We just talked about it, my 29-gallon, awesome fish tank. So we'll say a few weeks, a couple months go by. About spring now, 2016. So Christmas has passed. I have my tank, and her coworker figures out, them talking, that I have a fish tank. Well, he has fish tanks, a lot of cool fish tanks. He was a cichlid keeper. He had a reef aquarium going, and he got to the point that his wife said, "If you want another fish tank, this one has to go." I was the lucky recipient of some new fish. Now, remember, I have no idea what I'm doing. I just got my tank set up. I had just killed a batch of fish. I'm thinking like, oh, I got this water change thing down. Like, I have no issue. I'll keep up with whatever comes my way. Yeah, I go to his house. I pick up 5 convict cichlids. Everybody knows them, kind of as the rodent of the cichlid world. They breed really fast. These things were huge to me. I mean, remember, I was keeping 1-inch, 2-inch fish. These things were 4 inches, maybe up to 5 inches. We'll say 4 inches. They were big fish to me. Then he dumps in the bucket another fish. There's a yellow lab cichlid. 3-inch fish, beautiful yellow coloration. So a yellow lab cichlid. So now I'm up to this cichlid tank that I'm thinking, okay, like I've got this, that's plenty of fish. He goes, oh, by the way, I have more fish in this other bucket over here. He gives me a 6-inch pike cichlid. Now this by far was one of my favorite fish in this tank. If you don't know what a pike cichlid is, you can look that fish up. They got a lot of color variants. And I've never seen one, never heard about this. I kind of heard about the cichlids. So I'm still relatively new to what all these fish are. He goes, oh, I got another fish in this bucket over here. He gives me what I knew it as a jaguar cichlid, an 8-inch fish, beautiful markings, this beautiful coloration. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have the coolest tank that I could possibly ever have. Well, it gets better. He says, oh, I have one more fish for you, and that'll complete it. He dumps in my bucket a 12-inch red-tailed catfish. Now, those words right there, I'm sure I just blew up the internet because everybody knows that red-tailed catfish get absolutely ginormous. But remember, I had no idea. I was the giddy 12-year-old kid, well, in mid-20s, but I was acting like a 12-year-old kid that I had just won the lottery. I just got all these fish for free. I had the coolest tank idea to set up. So that came with big fish. I needed a bigger tank. So fortunately, the day before, I had purchased a 75-gallon aquarium secondhand. Didn't know what I was doing. I threw water in there. Fortunately, the guy told me, he's like, well, you need to cycle that aquarium. How about I hang on to these fish for the next week while you cycle that aquarium? So I had to give my fish back to him. Okay, that made me feel kind of dumb. And the whole time thinking, what do you mean cycle an aquarium? And that's a topic that we'll get more into later. Right now, I just want to give you a quick synopsis of how I got started in this. So he tells me, he's like, go to PetSmart, buy feeder goldfish and dump them in there, let them live in the tank for about a week. You'll lose a few, okay. So mind you, I didn't cycle my first aquarium. I kind of did on pure accident. So this 75-gallon was really the first time that I had any idea of what I was doing. So I put feeder goldfish in, let them live there, lost a few. And again, I had no idea what I was doing. I put on 2 hang on the back filters, a heat, I think it was like a 100-watt heater. Yeah, way underpowered heater. And I was ready. I dumped in blue and black gravel, all the fake plants I could possibly think of. But I was so proud to go back to this gentleman and say, I have my tank set up. I did what you told me to do. Can I have my fish now? Give me my fish back. I run home, and these fish go in this tank, and I sat there just in awe. Big fish, big catfish, and they're mine. In my tank, in my house. And everybody's like, that's a huge tank. Oh my gosh, those are big fish. And then you gotta delve into the YouTube world now, and you're like, no, that's actually kind of a relatively decent sized tank. But anyways, matter of opinion. All that mattered to me was my opinion, and that I loved my tank. So I got another series of pictures here.
This is the 75-gallon tank that I set up with the fish that I got from the gentleman for free. This is the tank that I learned a lot on. I tried, I failed, I tried again until I finally accomplished a few things that I was looking for. So as you can see, I have a lot of fake plants. the nice black and blue aquarium gravel. But one thing that I learned was heaters. I needed a bigger heater. I upgraded that. But probably the biggest thing that I started to learn in this tank was live plants. And in this series of pictures, you'll see some pothos plant sticking out of the top of the aquarium. That's a trick I learned to help reduce nitrates. The other thing I learned in this tank was sponge filters and how effective they can be. I also built the DIY LED light, which I learned from the King of DIY, which was fantastic. I learned to try new things by building them myself. In this certain picture, you can see a planter box on top of the aquarium, which is I actually built an overhead sump. And this was my first attempt at building a new style of filtration, and it was fantastic. It worked really well for this tank, and probably what kept my fish healthy while I had them in this tank. And that's something we'll go over later. I want to show some of these projects that I did on this tank to help others understand that it is a vast world in the aquarium hobby of what you can try. But again, the biggest thing I learned in this tank, and I want to emphasize, is pride. I took pride in my tank. I took pride in that I was learning, that I was coming out of my fear of trying new things and seeing what I could accomplish. By far, this has been one of my favorite tanks that I've ever kept, even though that red-tailed catfish probably shouldn't have been kept in there. It was still one of my favorite tanks that I have ever kept, and I'll always be proud of this tank.
So now that we've just talked about my 75, my old 75, this is my new 75 right next to me. And I know you haven't seen all my tanks yet. I don't have a lot. But before I started showcasing what I'm keeping now, I wanted to showcase what I previously kept. I wanted to showcase my journey of how I got here. What kept me going in this hobby. All too often, people buy a fish tank. A week later, a month later, a year later, it's not what they expected. They get bored of it. But that's something that leads into my next discussion here is you've now seen my tanks. You've now saw my original tanks. You now know I killed a lot of fish. You now know that I made things harder than they needed to be. But I learned, and that's all that mattered. I learned. Followed by, what else matters? They were my tanks, and I was proud of it. You couldn't convince me that I was doing anything wrong. You couldn't tell me that my tank was bad or terrible, because I would fire right back and say, no. That is my tank. I love my fish. I'm proud of that. I worked hard for that. But that's just it. We, as hobbyists, tend to downgrade people's success. And I don't know why. You go ask any serious hobbyist, we all started somewhere. You go watch the King of DIY, Joey Mullen. He's got his 2,000 gallon aquarium now. But you go dig into his videos and he talks about his first tank. Nowhere near his amazing 2,000 gallon aquarium. Aquarium Co-op. You go to listen to his videos. Nowhere near the 800 gallon, mind-blowing, amazingly 800 gallon aquarium that he's keeping right now. They all started somewhere. And now and today we have social media. Huge aspect. I'm on social media right now making this YouTube video, talking about my hobby of fish keeping. So it plays a massive part in people's lives. How often are we on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram? I'm sure I'm forgetting a few. But we know that with the internet came forums. We've all been on forums. Car forums, dating forums, whatever forum you can possibly think of, I'm sure there's a forum for it. Facebook came around and it generated a new type of forum or groups of people that came together and said, you know what? let's make a group and we're going to call it Fish Keeping 101. Sounds fantastic. We're going to talk everything fish keeping. We're going to help new hobbyists, learn. We're going to showcase our tanks. We're going to talk and have great discussions. And there are hundreds, I'm sure thousands of these groups that popped up over Facebook. And they're great. Don't get me wrong. Like, they are fantastic. I'm a member of a few of them. But what's frustrating is that the mindset of these forums changed. We went from, let's make these new hobbyists so proud of their tanks that they want to continue doing what they're doing. Instead, we turned it into wrong, 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 you're wrong, you did that wrong, your tank sucks, you need a bigger tank, your goldfish can't live in that, your beta can't live in that tank, what filtration are you using? Oh, why are your fish sick? Where did you get your fish from? No. You can't keep the fish that way. You need to keep it this way. Here's how I'm doing it and I'm right. Dude, who says? Who says that any of us are right? This is what I like so much about the aquarium hobby. It is such trial and error to find out what works. I keep my aquariums very differently than many other people will keep theirs, but it works for me. You get on these forums and people say, yeah, I haven't done a water change in a month, and you will blow up the internet. You get on there and you say, yeah, I'm keeping 3 goldfish in a 10-gallon tank. You will break the internet. But why? Why are we getting so mad at this? I was watching the Aquarium Co-op on his Real Fish Talk channel, so it's Real Fish Talk. Him and his co-partner, Corvus Joel, had a great discussion about this. And Corey, in paraphrasing, said, hate's a strong word. We'll say dislike. I dislike it when people say, this is how I would do it, or I do it this way. But it's not your tank. Instead, we need to come forward and say, may I make a suggestion? And allow that person to respond, yes, please. Help me understand your viewpoint of this hobby. But instead, we as hobbyists have obliterated the point of fish forums. We have such a great tool at our disposal of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, the internet in general to help these new hobbyists understand. That's where I get 99% of my information was YouTube. I would scour YouTube until I could get my 75-gallon, my first one, set up the way I wanted it to. But I was so afraid to post any pictures of it, any information, even get involved in discussions on one of the biggest fish forums on Facebook, because I was so afraid of the backlash, the ridicule that I would receive, because I was, one, keeping a red-tailed catfish in a 75-gallon tank, probably didn't have enough filtration in that tank alone for that catfish, and I had a mass jumble of other fish in this tank. And then it comes up, and then I can go on further of, you have gravel, you have fake plants, where you killed real plants. Why? I could have been one of those hobbyists that just dumped this amazing opportunity to see into a new world because I was ridiculed on Facebook. Instead, I kept going. Kind of held to myself until I felt confident enough 2 years later to get involved on these forums. And now I'm one that I try to give constructive advice, not criticism, pure advice. I look for the questions on these forums. What lighting do you recommend? What fish go well with this fish? But again, I state it in a way of, this is my opinion. This is how I have done it. Does not mean how you need to do it. I try to support these new hobbyists in a way that makes them proud, like we talked about, makes them proud of their tank. I've helped a couple new people recently come into this hobby, and it's been fun for me, and I hope it's fun for them. It's fun for me when I was able to take one of my good friends at the fish store, our local fish store, and he's probably chuckling right now because he knows what I'm talking about. And I said to him, all right, let's pick out fish for your tank. And we were there discussing what fish, in my opinion, would coexist together. But it was fun to watch him process this, think about what he wants, where he wants his tank to be, and that's what we need to be doing. We as hobbyists need to be supporting the newcomers. Let's fix the forums. It has gotten so bad, in my opinion, that I have left a handful of forums this past few weeks on Facebook. I keep wanting to say YouTube, but it's Facebook. Now there's a handful of people that are going to say, bye Felicia, don't need you. Fantastic. Here's just what, I don't need you either. I need my solid group of friends, my solid group to help me progress my hobby. In my opinion, this is a hobby that you can never know everything. There is something to learn new every day. I love, when I get home from work, to come into my fish room and spend a few minutes with my aquariums, studying, where is my fish this day? Where is my fish that day? Oh, that's a new spot of algae. Why did algae grow there? Oh, I got a new leaf on this plant. Wait, that plant's dying. Why is that plant dying? Oh, did my fish grow? Oh, my fish set up new territory over here. I study my tanks because I am the fish keeper. I want to know, I want to learn how my tank progresses because we're not just keeping fish tanks. We're keeping ecosystems. And that's something we need to get back to the basics, back to helping people understand what we are seeking to accomplish in this hobby. So I will say that the best fish forum on Facebook right now is Aquarium Group Support by Aquarium Co-op. I'm not a big channel. I don't have a lot of pull in the YouTube world, but I'll tell you one thing. Wel-Don Aquatics will definitely endorse the Aquarium Group Support Facebook page. Give it a chance. Give it a chance and let's see if we can't make a difference back in this hobby. Bring new people in and help them be proud of what they have. So with this video, I have talked about a little bit that I may have a new tank I want to set up, and that's specifically to help show new hobbyists how they can set up a tank for $100. It's a budget I set for myself, and it was quite a challenge. It was a challenge to go back to the root basics of how can I teach people to set up a new tank, because there's so many ways to do it and so many opinions on it. So this is the beginning of that series. And to start out, that's why I want to come back to how I started. I wanted to go back to my basics of, my first tank was a 29-gallon tank, and I killed every single fish but one that went into that tank. And I had to start from there and learn. A person that wants to get into the hobby, share this video with them. Let's inspire them together through Wel-Don Aquatics to show them that this is the best hobby you're ever going to get involved. Before we go for the night, I had to introduce you to the best team member of Wel-Don Aquatics. This is Tucker. He is my buddy in this fish keeping hobby, and he is right with me on every water change.